Welcome to On the Line. I'm Christine Williams. Coming up for discussion on our Viewpoints Hour. Cross-country rallies over the proroguing of Parliament, the groundbreaking case of a Canadian soldier charged in the killing of a Taliban fighter, and the reinstatement of an RCMP officer to his duties after an attempted fraud charge. Stay tuned. And these are the issues we're presenting today to our Viewpoints guests for commentary. With cross-country rallies and internet drives protesting the proroguing of Parliament, says one national columnist, Harper's decision may have peeved many, but it pales by comparison to widespread political apathy. A groundbreaking case, a Canadian soldier charged with second-degree murder over the killing of a Taliban fighter in Afghanistan. And it looks like an RCMP officer will get his job back after all, after being dismissed for attempted fraud over a bogus vehicle insurance claim. A federal court ruled job-related stress could explain his criminal actions. Now let's meet our Viewpoints guests. Al Kirouac is a publisher of the Halton Herald, and Paul McKeever is the leader of the Freedom Party of Ontario. And you, the viewer, you are, as always on Viewpoints, our third guest. Feel free to call in at any time with any of your comments about any one of the subject matters we're addressing today. And we're back to take a look at the first topic once again. It's about the proroguing of Parliament. Now, according to this Globe and Mail columnist, passion over prorogation pales next to political apathy. You can't avoid it. It's constantly in your face, the proroguing of Parliament, and my first reaction of it was, again, here we go again. We're going to discuss this again. But the bottom line is this. We are having cross-country rallies against it. We're seeing internet drives against it. But on the other hand, you're hearing a lot of columnists and people on the ground level, maybe you're feeling that way. I don't really care when it comes to the proroguing of Parliament. After all, and we need to remember this, it's not the first time Parliament was prorogued. It has been prorogued before under Jean Chrétien many times. And hey, you'd think it was a new thing. But I'm going to start with you on this one, Paul. What's your reaction here?
Well, I think no man's life, liberty, or property are safe while the legislature is in session. So in that sense, it's probably a good idea that they prorogued. They certainly got rid of a particularly bad bill, Bill C-15, which would have sent a lot of youth to jail over minor offenses relating to such things as holding and having marijuana in their possession. It was pretty much extremist legislation, I think, that was aimed at either the religious backbone of the Conservative Party or just some of the old, law and order types. In that sense, it's good. But I see in the story here that we're seeing, well, there's apathy that's outweighing the care over the proroguing.
And that's something we're going to be discussing at length. But you said you have a point there about that bill that died in Parliament. That is the one criticism, believe it or not, that I hear about any government that makes that decision. Bob Rae did it once too, that once you have a bill in progress, it automatically dies. So that's one criticism I've heard. Do you think it's a good thing, a bad thing? I mean, you named one example, but overall.
Well, I think when a party makes a mistake, when they think they're going to get a lot of support for a bill, and they charge ahead with it and they tout it as the answer to all problems, and then it horribly backfires. For example, in this case, the Senate watered down the bill to the point where they really didn't have the same bill at all. The Justice Minister looked like he was powerless to do anything, and I think this gives them a way out. They can always reintroduce. That'll introduce any. Will save them, but I think at least this way they can gracefully bow out and say, oh, it wasn't the Bill C-15, it was these other things that we did it for, and we might get around to putting C-15 back in another form one day. So in that sense, it gives governments an out, a face-saving measure. They can say that bad efforts or efforts that exploded in their face weren't abandoned, but rather were just washed out with everything else.
Now, the Afghanistan issue I intend to bring up again. Now, Al, your point of view on this?
Well, I think that people see through it all, and I don't really think, I mean, sure, they've got excuses and they can say this and that, but people are seeing right through what's going on.
Do you think people care?
I think they're starting to care because they're starting to see a big waste of government and a waste of time and a huge waste of resources. And frankly, I think times are tough and people are being forced to work. Why does the government get to take it off? Why do our elected officials?
That is my one aspect about any government that prorogues. And once again, Stephen Harper, this is not the first government to do this, and we all need to understand that. But these are paid representatives in government. I mean, we'd all like to have our time off. But do you care? That's the point. Because the reason why we're discussing it again today is we keep on seeing it in the news that there are internet drives, there are rallies going on across Canada saying, well, why is Parliament prorogued? I'm curious to hear what your point of view would be, though. When you look at the other incidents of the proroguing of Parliament under Jean Chrétien, even under Bob Rae, how come we didn't see these kinds of rallies? Any input there? Yes.
I was just going to say the whole thing I think is a farce. I mean, as this article even points out, support for those kinds of demonstrations are about a mile wide and an inch deep. It's a one day Saturday. You'll notice it was on a Saturday where people were actually willing to participate, but no one would have actually taken off a Thursday evening or a Saturday, a Thursday afternoon to do this kind of thing. This was, largely NDP and Liberal supporters who see an opportunity to, maybe make the Conservatives look bad. It doesn't work. No one cares enough. But at least they got, the Toronto Star obliged them with a little bit of a headline saying, rallies across Canada, as though it was an earthquake, when in reality it was just, someone dropped their rubber ducky in the pool,
I agree. It's partisan rallying, and it really, and true Canadians. I mean, it's really hard to muster Canadians to get out of the house and support anything. I mean, they'll do it from their couch, but they
not come out and
not
rally
very often.
At
They're
this
going to
time
go
of
out.
year,
No,
particularly.
not in the middle of January. But as you said, it's a great opportunity for various parties and leaders to get some recognition and kick somebody in the pants and get on TV.
Now, the angle that Roy McGregor comes with here in the Globe and Mail, I thought was really interesting, and I'd like to know what your point of view is. And we're not just talking about the proroguing of Parliament. He actually ventures in another territory here, saying, well, some people may have an interest in the proroguing of Parliament. We want to know, do you really care? But his angle is, when you look at the political climate of Canada, it's dull, it's boring. Like, what's there to really talk about anymore? I mean, from the point of view of, and this is interesting when you see this in the Globe and Mail. The Globe and Mail traditionally has been a very strong Liberal support. But here you have this fellow saying that, love Stephen Harper or hate him, he evolved from being accidental Prime Minister to temporary one to love him or hate him, full Prime Minister of Canada. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't agree with that. I think he's still.
What do you think he still is? You think he's still? Well,
There's
you
no
evolved, right?
alternative.
From accidental to temporary.
Well,
yeah?
I mean, you've got to you've got to deal with what we've got, and what alternative is there? That's the real problem with Canadian politics.
Now you're hitting
today.
the nail on the head there. What alternative is there? Okay.
Well, yeah,
There are other parties, granted, and I agree with you. But
we're going to be discussing about Ignatieff pretty soon. Pretty soon.
But Canadians, they sort of it's we're living in this two-party system, and people just cannot get away from that, and it frustrates me to no end, as I'm sure it does you.
Well, we're living in a one-party system, and the reason I say that is because we like the illusion of punishing the government, getting rid of the government, but what we really fear the most is change of any sort. I liken it to living in a big family of 12 kids with 2 parents. And the first day, you've got all this allowance, or maybe you've been making money, everyone's been making money, all the kids have been making money mowing lawns and whatnot. And one day Dad walks in and says, I'm going to take $1 off of each of you. I've got a great big plan. If we pool our money, and we'll have more than the money I take out of your piggy bank. And everyone gets excited the first time. And then he starts taking more from Joey than from Sammy because Sammy didn't make as much. And by the time each new time that Dad comes to the bedroom asking for money out of the piggy bank, the kids start going, wait a minute, what's he got in his head now? So I think government's that same thing. Every time a grand plan gets presumed, we think, okay, the piggy bank's empty, here comes another joker, and they never get rid of the old plans, they just heap more plans on top, and we all know what that really means. Each one of them becomes meaningless, worthless, broken, and yet we're still paying, the piggy bank's still empty. And so people don't want anybody with these grand plans They don't want a
The
liberal.
question is there even a grand plan? I mean, McGregor talks in this particular article specifically about the Liberal Party, questioning what is it today? What is the mandate of the Liberal Party? Once upon a time, it was pretty clear. Once upon a time, the NDP format, if you want to put it that way, their agenda was pretty clear. What's it now?
The plan is for the Liberal Party to move right and the Conservatives left. I mean, they're melding together. They're almost indistinguishable. They're all trying to do whatever it takes to appeal.
Would you say
to
they're
the
moving
general
closer and
public.
closer? As
No,
Al is
I'd say
stating
that they're
here?
already right on top of one another. There's virtually zero difference between today's Conservatives and
Absolutely.
yesterday's Chrétien Liberals. What they really want is for the other party to move out and for their party to move in. There's no difference. And the reason that there's no grand plan is because they all, if they're matured politicians, realize that the people don't want change. That what they really want is to punish people who mess up their day with things like ad scam. And if an ad scam happens, if enough people get ticked off and it bothers them, if it occupies enough of their day that they're spending too much time thinking about politics, they want to get rid of that guy. And whoever the biggest hammer is to get rid of him, just stick that guy in. How bad could he be? But as long as he's got no big plans. Because if he's got big plans, I'm going to the dull, vanilla guy who's just going to assume all the plans that we've got already in place and just keep things tickety-boo. It's all about micromanagement. But the problem is that the people do not want to look at the programs we have in place and recognize that they are all broken. The fear that they know they will feel if they look at those programs is too immense. It would be like introducing problems to their own lives. So they prefer not to look. And until we do, we will have a mass of broken programs paid for by over 60% of our income. We will have nothing but parties who try to knock out the other guy by criticizing them negatively because they all know that if they instead offer ideas, they will never get into office. The only thing you can do is create a vacuum, make the other guy look bad so that people want to get rid of him, and you get sucked in by the vacuum if you're number two. That's it.
Now you
Hopefully
have a
with a
different-
minority or a majority.
Hopefully
That's
with
what
a
the plan is. Majority. That's the plan today.
Now you support more of the capitalist tenets, if you want to put it that way.
Right.
And we're going to be discussing some of what that is. But once again, our lines are open. Do you care about our government? Let us know how you feel. Now, Ignatieff is a fellow we got to discuss. Stéphane Dion, everybody seems to be on the same page when it comes to this fellow. And in some ways, I feel bad for the guy. But Ignatieff, according to McGregor in this article, he too has evolved. But into what? We'll discuss it after the break. We'll be back after this. Don't go away. Hello again, and welcome back to Viewpoints on the Line. Continuing to talk about our first story, the proroguing of Parliament. Do you care? In fact, when you look at the political climate today, very much described as apathetic. Is this how you're feeling about government? Maybe a better question to ask you, because I'd love to hear your response to this. What do you want from government? Let's go now to you, Fritz, on line 4. Hi, Fritz. You're on the line.
Hi there.
Hi, go ahead, Fritz.
Yes, I feel that the proroguing of the government is simply a tactic by the Harper government to basically say no comment to issues that are affecting Canadians. I believe there should be strict rules on proroguing of Parliament, and if there's valid reasons, fine, but I don't see any valid reason now. The economy has been in this state for some time. Anytime I feel that a government has the need to say no comment, there's something to hide, and it just makes me feel very uneasy about the future of our country's direction.
Okay, thanks for that call, Fritz. Any of you want to reply to this uneasiness that Fritz
Well, I'm uneasy with the direction, whether or not they've prorogued because it's wrong direction. In the sense that, as I say, all they're doing is building upon this rotten foundation. And
now, you don't believe at all in a lot of government, big government to begin with.
I think that most of the problems we're facing in the economy right now are the result of overregulation,
too much
overtaxation. Yeah, I mean, government. What is government?
Now, some would say, okay, I'm going to interrupt you there for
go
1
ahead.
second, because we look south of the border, and there are those that have the opposite criticism. They'll say not enough regulation, because when you look at what happened with, once again, I'm bringing this up, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, that there just wasn't enough regulation. How would you answer to that?
Well, those were government creations, both Fannie
Yes,
Mae
they
and
were.
Freddie
Yes,
Mac.
they were.
And they are you'll notice those are the ones that are sitting right at the bottom of the foundation of the problem, were government-created banks that were designed to give money to people who were not creditworthy. And as a result, they just printed money and said, well, you don't have a job,
Backfired.
but here's some money anyway, because, we want to be equal with credit extension, give it to people independently of whether they're actually making any money. That all sounds fine in communist utopia, but the ultimate reality is one that comes crashing down on you. You can only cheat reality for the short term. In the long term, you cannot cheat reality. See, the old commercial, you can't cheat Mother Nature,
Yes.
and you can't.
So you're not on the same page as Fritz as seeing the proroguing of Parliament as a cause for making you mistrust. You don't trust, period, when it comes to the government systems you've seen.
I can make a statement about the government at any point. Today, I can go on YouTube, email, whatever. I can talk to a reporter by picking up the phone. Reporters should be calling people like Ignatieff and et cetera if they think they're not getting any feedback. You don't need to sit in a building, Parliament. I mean, the whole thing is pretty outmoded to begin with. And the idea that anybody watches CPAC to find out, what Jack Layton thinks about the government is ridiculous. I don't think anyone cares what Jack Layton thinks about the government.
Now I'm going there in a minute here, because
CPAC.
interestingly in this article, did the two of you not find it strange that in this particular article there was big mention made of the Tories, of the Liberals, but absolutely no mention of the NDP? Your thoughts there?
Well, just to go back to Fritz's calls, I think the point that Fritz was making was that we aren't trusting government anymore. We aren't trusting their excuses why they're proroguing Parliament, and these are the little things that they just build up in people's minds, and before you know it, we don't trust anything that they're telling us anymore.
I'm not even sure what
I
people
think we've
want.
reached that point.
And once again, I'm asking you, what do you want from government? Because you, Paul, you believe in smaller government, but there are those watching that believe in bigger government. We see the state of the economy, and they want to see more money into the system, and that's something I want to talk to you about shortly. But first, let's go to Andy on line 8. Hi, Andy. You're on the line.
Hi, I'm just wondering why the government does not keep its promises. They talk about stuff, and then all of a sudden they get in power, they spend a whole whack of money, and then all of a sudden they want to sell stuff off. 407. We should have that thing so low to the ground for cost-wise because it's been paid off. Or, what I mean, on that line. But why are you guys just doing this? You make promises and nothing ever gets done, and then you renege on your promises.
Once again, Andy, thanks for calling in. Once again, you're hearing from Andy not trusting government. Now, I'm gonna backtrack for a minute here and draw a point that Roy McGregor made. Now, there's a reason why he said that Stephen Harper, love him or hate him, he evolved from accidental prime minister. Let's face it, it was the corruption of the Liberals at that time that led to this election. And according to to a lot of articles that I read, people by and large don't know what to think anymore. There is a state of apathy, but he has evolved into a prime minister. But the question is, where do we go from here? What expectations do we have of our prime minister? You're saying the lowest possible. Now, I know that Prime Minister Harper responded to the economy. He actually said that there's a stimulus package already out there. Right now, we're just waiting to see what happens when. That's about it. So for those who are saying, well, he may have wanted to dodge the bullet on the economy, he said, well, nothing's really going on now anyway.
Well, I think the problem here is that we've forgotten...
What could he do?
Well, we've forgotten what government is. It's not that I'm in favor of smaller government or larger government. I'm in favor of government. But what we have... What do you call...
Okay, duties of government. What are you in favor of?
Well, this is it. What do you call an organization? What do you call a bunch of people who you didn't hire, who take money out of your pocket and spend it on, give it to companies, building companies, so that they can build buildings in another country like Haiti, for example, without your permission, without giving you anything in exchange, or take it and spend it on caviar. It doesn't matter what they spend it on. They took it from you without your permission. What do you call that? That's an organized criminal gang. That's not a government. What is a government? A government is a thing that protects you from people like that. What Canada needs, and what it used to have, is a group of people who use guns to ensure that you are never deprived of your life or your liberty or your property without your consent. And if you wanted to give money to Haiti, that was something you did consensually. Nobody said...
So do you believe that government should be giving overseas to charitable causes?
No.
Absolutely not.
Both of you are in agreement here?
No. That's right.
That's a personal, philanthropy is a personal thing. You don't, we don't expect that.
Okay,
from
do you
government.
mind your taxpayer dollars being used for these things?
Absolutely.
Because I don't personally, the two of you mind.
I absolutely mind, yeah.
I think it's criminal.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's not the role of government.
Let's go now to Ivan on line 4. Hi, Ivan, you're on the line.
Hi. Anyway, if Mr. Ignacio becomes the Prime Minister of Canada, he'll be the first American to ever become a Prime Minister of Canada. He spent all his life in the States. He's never done anything good for this country. I've done more for this country than he's done. Spent 20 years as a member of the greatest Air Force in the world, the Royal Canadian Air Force. Been on commission ever since I retired. Put thousands of dollars into the economy of London. He did nothing but shoot his mouth off.
Thanks for calling in, Ivan. Reaction there?
Well, I mean, I spent 7 years in the States, too, and I consider myself a Canadian. So, I mean, it's easy to find fault in anybody. I mean, you can do that with the presiding prime minister or any of the parties. So I don't think.
Well, I thought it was kind of funny though the way Roy McGregor talked about him. He appears to be, quote, school smart but street stupid. Now, according to this article, he started out okay. But then again, was that when he was losing, or was it by comparison to Stéphane Dion?
Well, that goes to show you, though, that intellectuals like good arguments, big grand plans, and that's what Nadev was full of. He had all plans.
Well, what happened all of a sudden?
Well, he learned.
He tried to call an election many times.
Kept switching.
Well, I think he learned, as he's becoming a politician, he's learning that people don't want to have grand plans. They scare people off. So now he says, well, what's left? And the politicians tell him, well, what you have to do is knock the other guy out, make him look so bad that nobody wants him around anymore, and you'll get sucked in as a vacuum. So he's spending all of his time now talking about, prorogation and, this plan and that plan, Harper, spending all his time talking about Harper, instead of talking about Canada. And if you want to talk about Canada, I think you talk about what produces wealth and happiness, justice.
What is that, though? What is that? Okay, what is that?
Canadian individuals do. Government, what is government? Government is just an entity with guns. They don't build anything. They don't serve anything. All they are supposed to do and all they can do is use guns to threaten us to do things.
There's something we can't get away from in our society today, particularly now given this economy. You've got a lot of people out there that are really struggling to make ends meet, people that lost their jobs after working for decades.
Yes.
And that is where many people fall back on the government to provide the welfare, to provide certain benefits, and for those who may need a stimulus. I mean, we saw what happened in the States. Barack Obama is being called in some circles a socialist.
Right.
We saw that there. But at the same time, he stands up and defends that, look, he's stimulating the economy with anticipation that somehow down the road, he's going to have some kind of a return on investment.
So it's called wishing on a star. And that's exactly what it is.
Well, I don't disagree in this context.
Yeah, and that's what, again, what does it mean for someone, what's the difference between a person who has no money simply going to my house and saying, give me all your money or I'll beat you up, Or electing someone who says, give me all your money so I can give it to him, or I'll beat you up, or throw you in jail. It's the exact same thing. We play this mental game where we think that because we ask the government for it, it's not immoral.
Do you believe in any cushion for the poor?
I believe that, yes, I believe in charity that comes from persons who give it voluntarily. I think that's...
But not government funded.
That's not charity.
So if people don't give...
That's not charity.
You're out on your luck, you're out on the street.
That's plunder, it's not charity, it's stolen money, and it takes any morality out of the question. It turns it, in fact, into an immoral act, because you are harming someone, presumably to help someone else, but you're harming someone. That's not the rule of government. And when government assumes that rule, everyone starts to believe, well, I guess government is the one that goes around and harms people. We start thinking of government as an organized criminal gang that we can turn to if we're good enough, if we keep electing them, that maybe we'll get our share. When what we really should be saying is, please just prevent people from stealing my money, from hurting me, from taking my property, from harming my children. That's your job. I'm paying you to do that. Please just do that and stop with these grand plans where you take my money and spend it on dreams that never pan out.
But you do agree that there needs to be some government involvement when it comes to, again, when you look at the jurisdiction, somebody looks after the highways, the hospitals, they all have their various areas, whether it's under federal jurisdiction, provincial, municipal, and money goes toward certain services in society.
Well, the police, the judges.
Exactly.
And
so that's, you're fine with that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because what they're doing is, in those roles, they're making sure that every exchange of values is consensual.
But the poor is different. Okay. Al, I want to hear how you feel about this.
Well, I think that the government's role really is to manage, aside from the administration side of it, manage our economy, manage our hope for tomorrow, and that's what people want. They want hope for tomorrow.
How does the government manage that?
Well,
Again, I use Barack Obama as an example because he
mismanage.
pumped trillions of dollars into the economy, saying it's a stimulus, with a hope of seeing an investment, a return on the investment down the road. Do you believe in that strategy?
No, I don't believe.
You think
in
it's
that.
over too much?
I think the whole bailouts.
Too much. You don't
it's
believe in
way
bailouts.
Too much.
You don't
No,
believe in bailouts.
Not
Or maybe that's why the NDP aren't mentioned.
To a point, yeah, and depending on where it's going, if you're going to put it in the right sector, bailing out banks, I don't agree with at all. No, I don't.
Okay, it's been done before the rise of Hitler in Germany. What they did is they printed money, just the exact same way. They tried to spend their way out of an economic slump by actually creating more dollars, and that's exactly what they've done. Only
that's what's happening,
on a huge scale.
Lowers the
trillions.
value. Lowers the value.
Every dollar becomes less and less valuable over time, and it takes months for the effects to be felt. But you just watch. In my view, we're looking for a downslide, a double-dip recession. Huge. It's going to be horrible.
Absolutely.
Every bit as bad
I'm hearing that. It
as
sounds really negative, and that's not what people want to hear, but I've also heard many people say, experts, that we're really in an artificial bubble here.
They need a reality check.
Because there are some experts who believe that the economy is every bit as good as you're willing to convince yourself that it is, and that as long as you believe it's good, you'll keep buying and spending and working. But that's false. The reality is that debt is a reality. You have to pay those debts down. They don't erase just because you feel good about the economy, and those debts are tomorrow's expenditures. And once you've already spent them, tomorrow has no money. That's when we all become impoverished. We're heading for disaster. I can honestly say this. Harper is criticized sometimes for not spending enough. He spends way too much. But
and I know that's your criticism.
Nowhere near as much as they have in the United States. And so, as far as people shooting themselves in the head, we're using a BB gun, they're using a shotgun. It's not good in either situation, but thank goodness we don't have another Obama up here.
Do you agree with that?
Well,
do you agree, thank goodness we don't have another Obama up here, or would you not?
Absolutely, and I agree with the point that he made, especially with our monetary system, is that it used to be the value of your monetary system was based upon gold. Now it's not. It's based upon your natural resources, and we're spending our natural resources hundreds of years down the road.
Yeah, that's a scary thought. I'll tell you what, as soon as we come back from the break, because I love to hear your point of view, we're going to get straight to you on the phone line, so be patient, don't go away. We'll be back after this. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Viewpoints on the Line. We want to hear what you think waiting on the phone line, so let's go to you, Joanne, on line 8. Hello, Joanne. You're on the line.
Hello, Christine. How are you today?
Fine, thank you.
Oh, that's great. Listen, I'm going to vent because
Good.
My family and I are so fed up. Not every household in this country has 2 working people for whatever reason.
True.
And the government keeps taking and taking and taking to subsidize these great plans. For instance, as Paul said, welfare.
Paul's nodding.
Child care. And, you know, we just can't afford it. I mean, the well is dry. Hello?
Joanne, this is the place to call if you want to vent. You got to appreciate what Joanne is saying there.
Absolutely. You know, when I'm on campaigns, I hear that at the door all the time. And yet you hear in the various meetings that, the public want more programs, more. But where's the money coming from? The public are smarter than that. They understand that every program
I'm not
means
sure if the public
reading
really
wallet.
understands all the time where their money is going. Saying that it's going to the poor is one thing, but is it? Or is it going to these top-heavy organizations and certain people working within the government that are stuffing their pockets?
Oh, clearly.
That's the concern.
Yeah, I mean, in the case of Haiti, for example, that money's not going to go to some poor family. The money's going to be spent on a Canadian business. They're going to use that money to fuel up their bulldozers, and they're going to make huge profits building a building in Haiti, which they'll probably then own and rent out to Haitians. This is not about helping the poor and helping the starving. It's about, yay, we've got an opportunity to seize property and use up Canadian taxpayers to fund Canadian businesses so they'll have huge profits this year.
You got to be careful, though, what organization you're giving to, because I'll tell you one thing, and I'm going to put in that plug there. If you're giving to Mission Services and Crossroads, your money's going where it should. Okay.
But that's a private and voluntary
Yes, it's
enterprise.
private. Well said, not a government.
And think about how much more money would go directly to the people who you intend to be helped with your money if, in fact, the government wasn't taking so much of your money and giving it to the large building companies and et cetera, who are now going to be making huge profits out of a disaster.
Wow.
He's right.
Yes.
I mean, the government isn't given our portion of the money to, it's going to different efforts that
That's
are
right.
being put up.
Okay, let's go now to Ramindi on line 1. Hi, Ramindi, you're on the line.
Hi, how are you guys doing?
Fine, thank you.
I'm only 16. I don't know much, don't know a lot about the government and politicians, but I hear that there's a lot of controversy going on in the USA, like about the Illuminati and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That I hear we know that they're doing a lot of bad stuff, such as the Twin Towers going down, 9/11, and only one person is actually standing up, like Charlie Sheen and stuff.
Ramindi, you're only 16 years old? 16, he said.
16.
I'm glad to hear from you, Ramindi, but be very careful what you're hearing about conspiracy theories, okay? Because there's a lot of scary stuff going on. You hear it, you see it in the movies. It makes for good, entertaining reading, but be very careful what you fill your mind with there, because one other aspect, and that's out of the scope of what we're discussing today, is youth like Ramindi. A lot of the youth today, they don't know what their future is going to be. On one hand, they're hearing all the negativity going on in the world, and on the other hand, they're hearing added to that the conspiracy theories. This does nothing to help our youth.
You know, I grew up reading that same stuff, Illuminati. Banking conspiracies. Sometimes Jewish people are victimized, sometimes Catholics are victimized, sometimes different Freemasons. There are a million theories. But I would only recommend to anybody reading that stuff that they keep in mind one thing. It's never about who, it's about what. And if it's wrong to steal, it doesn't matter who's doing the stealing. Don't get wrapped up in the conspiracies and who's doing it. Simply demand that your government not allow it to occur. And that way nobody gets
what you're
demonized.
talking about there, I think, is a great guidance for our youth today. Expect integrity and live a life ruled by integrity.
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree with that, but I also agree with that there should be a level of distrust in everything, every information you're getting, and all sides
Distrust,
should
but
always
not
be.
paranoia.
A little bit of paranoia, I think. I think
little
you've
bit,
really
little
got
bit.
to, you got to, I mean, there's always some truth in all these conspiracies. There's a little bit of truth. It may not be entirely true, but there's going to be portions that are true, and that's how these conspiracies manage to build foundations to get to the level they're at. What part is true and what isn't is always
Just
the
don't become too
controversy.
obsessed with that, because that could
No,
really drive you.
no,
Okay, let's go.
absolutely.
Yeah,
It can really be the root of racism and all kinds of
Absolutely.
hatred.
and fear, and it's just not.
You
Got to be careful with that.
Yeah, you don't target a group, you target an activity. activity, and you say
Well
the
said,
activity
well
is wrong.
said.
And
Well
balanced
said.
reading is really what
Balanced
you got to do.
reading is critical.
You've got every
Yeah.
conspiracy theory that you venture into, you've also got to make sure
Got to seek knowledge.
You got to seek knowledge on both sides.
Ian on line 8. Hi, Ian. You're on the line.
Hello, Christine.
Hi,
This is
Ian.
a wonderful show, and both guests are
Thank you.
intelligent.
That they are.
But I have two things to say. One, I'm intellectually against the proroguing. I don't like proroguing for long periods of time. However, I feel a lot better learning yesterday from the Toronto Sun that Bob Rae, the leader for the Socialist New Democrats 18, 19 years ago, he prorogued for 4.5 months.
Yes, he did.
And Ontario didn't fall apart. So that's one thing. But the second thing is Paul McKeever said something very interesting. Technically, he's correct about the government shouldn't force people to donate to charities we should give personally. We are giving personally, but I believe the majority of the people, we like it when the government will double our donations to Haiti. This is a disaster that happens once every 100 to 300 years. It is so terrible when you study it.
Okay, Ian, thanks for that call. We appreciate you calling in. Now we're going to move on to our second topic now. And actually, before we discuss it, we're actually going to go to Andy on line 4 calling from Ottawa, wanting to introduce it for us. Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, hello, Christine, and hello, panel. As you know, Christine, I'm an ex-cop, all right? And anyways, when I first heard this morning about the, this poor officer or a soldier in Afghanistan, the first thing that came to my mind was a two-word thing, and it's not what you would think. I was thinking of supine canines, in the DND. All right? Now, for first-degree murder, that would imply, premeditation. All right. Second degree is bargained down from, or else it is what it is. A spontaneous premeditation. And is that not what a soldier is all about?
You got a point there, Andy. What we're going to do now is put that article up on the screen for you to have a look at now before we go for our break. And here you have it, Canadian soldier in court on murder charge. Well, you heard from Andy, his point of view. And according to this report here, this is really a first of a kind. In a nutshell, you have a situation where we've got a soldier up on charges of second-degree murder, and it stems from an ambush that happened in Afghanistan with a group of about 100. And according to the reports here, the documents, it went like this: that this Taliban fighter was already injured. His rifle was taken away from him. And he was shot. Now, some say he was shot because, hey, it's war. It's a war zone. Next of all, there was an argument made, well, there was no other way. There was no medical facility. There was nothing there. So he was just shot. Now, I wouldn't use that as an argument because I think our regular viewers know where I stand on euthanasia. But the point of the matter is here, we're not looking at a regular, everyday affair. We're looking at a war front that gets bloody. The soldiers are under pressure. Yes, there are standards to follow. And as one individual put it here, a lawyer, that perhaps the situation in Somalia, which was quite glaring, maybe that is what is making this so politicized. But the question is, how do you feel about having one of our soldiers up on second-degree murder charges? Once again, our lines are open. Now, you're free to call in at any time with any of the subject matters that we're addressing today. We don't have a problem going from subject to subject. We want to hear your thoughts. But I'm going to start with you this time on this one, Al. How do you feel about the soldier being charged?
It's such a quagmire. I mean, really what we're debating is the conditions in which you can kill somebody. And,
on a war front.
Yeah,
on a war front.
I don't even know where to begin.
I don't know either, and that's the problem.
It's so complicated.
It's fire for fire.
How do you and especially with as much information as we got, we don't have a lot of information.
We don't have a lot, no.
It's so complex because we're there.
There's
what are we
witness.
doing there? There's a lot of people that don't want us there. There's a lot of people here that don't even want to be there. I mean, it's so complex. I don't even know where to begin on this one.
And there's one unnamed witness that says he saw what happened. Yeah. We don't even know who this witness is. We don't know the credibility of that witness. How do you feel about it, Paul?
Well, I think there's a difference between a police officer and a soldier. A soldier kills.
Most definitely.
A police officer tries to keep the peace. The problem we run into, the reason we have a person who's charged for killing the enemy, that's his job in a proper situation, he's now being treated as though he's a police officer doing policing services in another country, and he's been put in that role.
Good point.
He should never have been put in that role. A soldier is there to annihilate the enemy, just as the enemy was there to annihilate him. You'll notice no one said, excuse me.
Even more so in the case of the Taliban.
Right. The Taliban isn't exactly pulling Canadian soldiers to the side and saying, excuse me, we're going to arrest you now. They're blowing them up. And just before this alleged incident,
just to give you some idea, okay,
Yeah.
the Taliban shot 8 kids to death just for laughing at them. That's the kind of stuff you see the Taliban doing. They behead people, they kill people, they attack people, they rape people, no scruples whatsoever. And I'm not justifying to say, well, because they're so evil, we should go ahead and be that evil. But you're looking at a war front here. We've got one unnamed witness, according to this article, and as you rightfully said, Al, we don't know the full, all of the information yet, but it's a war front. And this guy is not a cop, but he's being accused of second-degree murder on a battlefield.
Is it a war front, though, or is it an occupation?
That's the question.
That's the question. Is it a war front or is it an occupation?
Is it not both?
And then you brought up a really good point. I mean, you're going on about the Taliban. I mean, these are embedded reports. I mean, what is truth? I mean, in times of war, the first thing to go is
Taliban's
truth.
known, though, they have a long history. The Taliban has a long history. I mean, there were ancient Buddhist statues up
They
there.
got a lot of history of...
yeah, they have a horrible history.
Well...
I mean, I talked to a lawyer that came from Afghanistan.
Even today, I've talked
Yes.
to lawyers, actually, who was drafting up the civil rights and the Constitution. But anyways, in Afghanistan, I mean, the first casualty of war is truth. And that, I have a real problem with when every time I hear these reports of the Taliban killing 8 children and throwing acid in people's faces, I mean, I have a hard time grasping this simply because I couldn't imagine any political party in this country attacking its own citizens while it's being occupied and defending its nation from occupation.
I have personally heard from soldiers that knew people that I know and heard from them the atrocities committed by the Taliban on the ground level, and even from other Muslims that are so against the atrocities of the Taliban. So I wouldn't give them the benefit of the doubt from that point of view. I don't believe you just go in there and be indiscriminate toward people. You don't take people. You don't torture them for fun. I don't believe in that. They are human beings, and that's another issue. Have we? That's another issue. You turn them over to their own authorities, and again, it comes down to
they get tortured by their own authorities.
Okay. So we go there and we throw ourselves and tell them how to run the place. You hear criticism about us going there, taking over people's system. So on one hand, you hear those criticisms, and on the other hand, we're being told, well, go over there and change things. So this argument can go outside the scope, which is already gone, of what we're talking about. But the thing is, do we really prosecute a soldier on the ground level for second-degree murder over this Taliban fighter?
Christine, to my mind, the first question is, should soldiers be there? If people in Afghanistan actually pose a threat to Canada, the answer is yes.
But that's not even the question that we're discussing here.
But if the answer is no, they don't pose a threat, they simply have a lot of strife over there with fighting forces and lots of evil conduct, I say, sucks to be you. Get the Canadians back.
There you go.
Now, if the Canadians are there, then I have to assume that our government knows that somebody in Afghanistan poses a threat to Canada. If not, bring the soldiers back. But if there's a threat, the sole role for that soldier is to kill the enemy, period. And therefore, there should be no due process and etc. His job is to kill the guy that shot at him.
You got a point.
Be on trial.
You got a point. Imagine being a soldier, now facing, you don't know if your own government's going to come and prosecute you. We're going to go for a break now. When we come back, we'll get straight to you on the phone lines. Don't go away.
Yes, I believe here.
Hello again, and welcome back to
problem.
Viewpoints on the Line. We're going to go straight to you on the phone lines now. Leonard on line 8. Hi, Leonard. You're on the line.
Hi, how are you today?
Fine, thank you.
I was going to comment on proroguing the government,
That's fine.
but now you're on the other topic.
No,
with the
that's no problem, Leonard. Go ahead.
Okay, now the Taliban, we must remember where they came from and what they represent and what sect that they follow and what they've done to the people of Afghanistan, and that the Canadians were invited. We didn't invade. And I think it's ridiculous, being a former member of the Canadian military myself, that somebody in a war zone should be charged with murder. It is ridiculous that the government would even let this happen. That's my comment. Thank you.
I thank you for calling in, and there is a website supporting. I don't know what that website is, but Facebook. There are people that feel exactly like you, Leonard, and they're supporting this fellow, because it does strike me as odd that this guy's up on charges
Especially
for
if the
killing in a war zone. It's
helicopter had
weird.
just finished spraying the whole area and killing someone.
Wow. Thanks for calling in, Leonard. Eleanor on line 4. Hi, Eleanor. You're on the line. Go ahead, Eleanor.
Okay, I just wanted to comment on that military man being charged. I think it's just a disgrace to our military that that's even happening. It shouldn't be happening, because that's what they're there for, and they're there to support us.
Yes. Eleanor, thanks for that call. I just can't imagine what... Go ahead. What this guy's feeling.
I think it's a great thing, because you know why? It means that our military brass are conscious about the conduct of their soldiers out in the field. So I think it's a great thing.
After the Somali incident?
You know, if he's innocent, he will
ago?
come out innocent, and I really have a lot of faith in that.
You have faith in that?
I do
Okay,
now. I didn't before, but now I do.
Maybe that's the hope of it all? Okay.
You
had a point there, I know it.
Well, I was just going to say, I think it's absurd that in this situation, the Canadian captain and his troop pulled back so that Americans could come in and strafe the entire area, killing everyone in sight. That it only killed one person, and it injured the guy in question. And now we don't criticize the attack helicopter for killing the one fella, but we do criticize our own soldier for finishing the job. Ridiculous. That's what the job of the helicopter was. That's what the job of the captain and his troop were. He did a good job. He deserves a medal, not a trial.
But also, I mean, let's look at it this way. At least it's making our
You're talking accountability.
Soldiers, yeah, it's making them accountable, and they're going to think it next time they go in and start blasting away. I mean, we've really got to be conscious objectors when we go to other...
But we still, and it's not always easy, but we still need to know where to draw a line. And was this really the time to do it in this particular scenario? With, according to what we have here, one witness when they were ambushed. Is this really the scenario? I mean, we've had violations in the past.
What if we didn't do anything and this information came to light? Then there would be a huge outcry. So, I mean, this is just a democratic process, and it's...
Do you think it's a democratic process or a politicized one now at this point? Because that was the suggestion made here.
You could go either way with it.
Yeah, you can go either way. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. What's the agenda?
Yeah, I think this is a politicized military. It shouldn't be politicized. There should be a wall between sound military decisions and what some wussified media want to say about some soldier in the field. To heck with the media, to heck what they think, to heck what the average wussy in the field in Canada thinks. This soldier did his job.
No way, come on.
This soldier,
I don't want our soldiers there killing indiscriminately.
It's a democracy, fellows.
He did his job, and he gets a pat on the back from me. That's all I can say.
Okay. Topic 3, we normally don't get to that because... Well, you see why. But this was quite interesting. This RCMP officer, there you have it, dismissed Mountie may get job back. This guy, to make a long story short, under tremendous stress, he was working with drugs, according to this article. He received death threats, and he was transferred from one department to another. But he did see a clinician that said he was suffering from paranoia, from intense stress. Now, fast forward this a little bit. Even after he was transferred, he ended up crashing his Honda motorcycle, realized he didn't have enough vehicle insurance, so he decided to say, well, he's going to go ahead and purchase a comprehensive policy and make a claim saying that he hit a bird while he was driving. As it turns out, he ended up backtracking when the insurance company started asking questions. The argument here, the court ruled he was under stress on the job, so that justified basically what he did, and he should be reinstated back to work.
Yeah, I mean,
you have a thought here.
Well, first of all, he pleaded guilty. So the issue is, what's the right punishment?
In the first place.
Right. What's the right punishment? And my view is, the criticism by the court actually backed this fella and said, well, you know, the decision makers who were handing out the punishment didn't take into account that he was under all this stress and that it caused. Look, stress doesn't cause decisions.
That's a dangerous line to walk if you believe that.
Decisions are made by people under stress, and the quality of an officer, the fitness of a person to be a police officer is.
You see, that's where it should have been in the first place. Should he have been dismissed to start with?
Right. Do you make decisions under stress that are the right ones? If so, you deserve to be in a uniform. If not, get the heck out of the forces.
Now that's the way to go. Al?
You know, I once had an officer tell me that, and it was kind of shocking to hear it from him, that you have, and it made me think afterwards, but what he said to me was that sometimes in policing you got to think like a criminal, and eventually after you're a police officer for so long, you start thinking like a criminal. It takes a criminal to catch a criminal.
Not all. I know a lot of cops.
No, I got a brother who's one. And so, I mean, that was really a profound statement, and if you really think about it, it makes a lot of sense. But then maybe we got to put safeguards in place that stop officers from thinking like a cop after a certain amount of time.
But across the board, never blame stress for wrongdoing. That's a given. Al and Paul, very engaging. Thank you both so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Christine.
And that's all the time we have. See you again next time. I'm Christine Williams, and from all of us, thank you for watching.